no disrespect to him, but I feel like he was kind of the Karen of the CIA. And that's what they call it. They called him the human rights guy. And,
but they put him through the ringer.
They put him through the fucking ringer, yeah. And anything that was morally unjust, he sort of like spoke up,
right,
and sort of called people out on it, which is why I call him the Karen of the CIA, because I feel like if you're in the CIA, you should kind of expect that.
Danny Jones.
What's up, man?
Welcome to New Jersey.
Thanks for having me on your podcast.
Of course. Thank you for having me on your podcast.
You're the first one that's had me on their show, like in a legit studio like this.
Matt Cox hasn't had you on his show yet?
I've been on his show, but we recorded it in my studio.
So you were at least on it.
I was on it, yeah.
You let him use the space for that.
I let him use my studio. Yeah, he had me on his podcast, but in my studio.
I got to see that one. That's sick.
It's pretty good.
Matt, and by the way, thank you for hooking up Matt and Andy Bustamante up here.
Hell yeah.
Both phenomenal.
Those
people
are
really like
sick
them.
episodes. Super interesting guys.
It's really funny how the world works sometimes, man, because I was not aware of your show until this is like maybe right after New Year's, something like that. And somebody pointed out Koncrete and was like, hey, have you heard of this? Can you check it out? Let me know what you think. I said, no, actually, let me go check it out. So I turned on it was the Roger Reeves one. And I'm like, holy shit, this is fucking phenomenal. So I was a fan. And then, I don't know, maybe like a month later, you hit me up and I'm like, oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
Like something's happening here. And then, we hit it off. So it's been great getting to know you and have a show to look up to because you've been doing this longer than I have and you're doing a fucking amazing job, man.
Well, thanks, man. That's exactly how I learned about you, through the comment section.
That's it.
A guy commented it. He's like, dude, you got to check out Julian Dorey or get him on here. And
That's
then
so
sure
cool
enough, I
when
looked you
fans
up
do
and
that.
I followed you on Twitter, and the rest is history. Next thing we know, we're playing golf together.
That's it, man. And that was fun down there. Enjoyed that with the boys.
That was super fun, man. I really enjoyed that as well.
Give me your glass, by the way.
I'm really enjoying this New Jersey neighborhood that we're in, the Soprano-esque neighborhood that we're in.
I feel like you're so into, like, you look at New Jerseyans as a science experiment.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's just all these memories of watching The Sopranos are flooding back to me right now.
Now, did you watch that when it was originally on, or did you watch it after?
No, I watched it after.
Yeah.
I wasn't into watching TV when that was on.
That show, I mean, I'll defend it forever, is the best there ever was, but it just...
It definitely started. It definitely started the whole genre of like
Yes.
good serialized drama.
Exactly. They were really the place that legitimized it. They took the movies and brought them home to your TV, effectively. And they told the story so fucking well, man. I mean, like, and we'll get into it, but like, your background is film and everything. And when you look at like even today, 20 years later, whatever it is,
Thank you.
Of course, the style and how they told the stories, the cinematography, and even like the way, especially I'd say like the way they scored it with the music and everything, it's timeless.
Yeah, I enjoy doing stuff like that. That's really my calling, is creating shit like that. Like I told you before, I was like super inspired by Breaking Bad. That's kind of like what gave me my style, my documentary style. And I think Breaking Bad was kind of inspired by Sopranos.
Yes,
because it was really like the second biggest show after The Sopranos was Breaking Bad that everyone talked about.
Depends. I mean, a lot of people talk about The Wire too.
Oh yeah, The Wire. I never watched that.
Oh my God, you never seen that?
No, I've never seen The Wire.
You're a documentarian and you've never seen The Wire. Oh my God, are you in for it? That show is literally, it's a documentary. It's a show. It's a story. It's got actors, but it's the same shit. Like they told the story so well in the style that they did, and it wasn't even like this crazy high budget thing. It wasn't all this fanfare. It was brilliant. But I mean, no matter what, Breaking Bad is just like another perfect show. It was incredible, the job they did. Yeah,
it was amazing. That show really took it to the next level, and especially like I told you before, like there's the cinematography in that show. And the character development, and regardless of what the story is, regardless of not even taking the writing into account, just the filmmaking part of it was fucking blew my mind.
And when did you get into that, like filmmaking?
I got into that when I was super young, when I was probably 15 years old, 14 years old, maybe even younger, just filming like skateboarding and surfing and shit with my friends.
By the way, cheers.
Cheers.
Gotta do that right.
Appreciate you having me up here to Jersey.
Of course, man. I've never said it like that in my life, by the way.
That's not how they say it?
No.
How do they say it?
Jersey.
Just Jersey.
That's it.
Just Jersey.
Yeah, I don't like this. You're coming at me with some heat right now. I don't like it.
It's not heat. I'm just fun.
I woke up to a text this morning that said, there's a lot of great characters on my flight to Philadelphia. A lot of gold jewelry going on. I'm like, okay. He chose violence.
A lot of gold chains.
He chose violence this morning. I see what it is.
A lot of wife beaters. A lot of tank tops.
A lot of those, yeah.
It's just the way she goes.
For sure.
Sometimes she comes. Sometimes she goes.
There's styles. There's styles to it. But I'm sorry, I cut you off. You were saying you got into it when you were like 14 or 15? And then
super
you went
young.
full in?
Yeah, just skateboarding and surfing shit. Like, me and my friends were just always, like, skating and surfing everywhere and filming each other and making little clips out of it. And then eventually I became friends with a couple pro surfers that are from the same town as me. And
where are you from?
Indian Rocks Beach, Florida.
Which is, like, right next to Tampa, right?
Yeah, straight shot west from Tampa. Straight to the beach from Tampa. Right south of Clearwater. And, just became friends with those guys, a couple pro surfers from the area, and eventually their sponsors hired me to follow them around the world and shoot them like surfing and stuff. And
how old were you?
That time I was probably 18, maybe 18-ish.
Wow, early. Wow.
But I was also working construction. I had a couple friends who had a commercial painting business, and we were painting like condos and like new construction, high rises and shit like that. And I was doing that, and then whenever I would get like an offer to go like travel and film some crazy surfing shit, I would go do that. And then that led to shooting shit for ESPN and MTV and just being like a hired hand to film content, shows, documentaries and stuff like that, like as a camera operator and producer as a young kid.
Did you go to film school in there too?
No, I wanted to, but I didn't get in.
No shit.
Too much of an idiot. Yeah,
you didn't get in?
No, I didn't get in. I had really bad grades in high school, and
but what about creatively?
It doesn't matter. My grades, I didn't pay attention in high school. I skipped a lot of school to go surfing and do stupid shit with my friends. And I neglected my high school education. So for that reason, I couldn't get into, I wanted to go to UCF for film school, which is University of Central Florida in Orlando. And I actually even got a letter of recommendation from one of their top graduates of all time. His name's Rob Cowie, and he was the guy who created the Blair Witch Project.
Wait, I actually don't know.
You never heard of the Blair Witch Project?
No.
Wow.
What is that?
The Blair Witch Project is the first found footage feature movie that ever came out. So have you ever heard of Paranormal Activity?
Yes, that's like a full-blown feature film.
Yeah, so basically it was the first movie that was marketed as real-life found footage. So it's like, it was these kids that went out into the woods, they went camping, and they found some fucking witchcraft shit, and it killed them all. And then the footage was found. They found literally like the tapes, and somebody found the tapes, and
they were killed by witches.
By witches, some sort of fucking crazy witchcraft, yeah.
Where was this?
I forget where it was. In the woods.
Somewhere in America. Okay. All right, continue.
And they found the footage, and then they cut it into a documentary, and they marketed it like, okay, we're gonna premiere this to the real world, but this is found footage of these college kids that all got murdered. We found their cameras, we found their tapes, and fucking blew everyone's mind, and it made like hundreds of millions of dollars, and it only cost them $50,000 to make it.
Really?
Yeah.
I gotta see this. So wait, when was the alleged attack or whatever the fuck it was?
When the movie came out?
No, like when they were killed in the woods.
I don't remember. I
a
think
long time ago,
90s,
or
90s, early 90s maybe.
And when did this come out? Like late 2000s?
Mid 90s, I think.
Oh, it came out back then too.
Yeah,
so it's
I
like
think
right
so.
after.
Maybe late 90s. I don't know. You'd have to look it up. I can't remember off the top of my
I
head.
have to see this.
But so it was one of the most successful movies of an alumni of UCF ever. So a fucking letter of recommendation from that guy is like a golden ticket.
Sure.
But still didn't get me in.
Danny Graves wasn't good enough.
I was too much of an idiot. So at that point, I was just kind of like, I kind of gave up all hope and just, I was getting a couple jobs here and there filming I got a job when I was like 19 filming for ESPN in Puerto Rico for a bill fishing, marlin fishing tournament where, all these fucking rich guys go out in their boats and they catch blue marlin and it's part of a TV show on ESPN. And I was the guy with the water housing, because when I used to film surfing, I'd be in the water with the water housing. I put my video camera in this big like submarine.
What's a water housing?
It's like this submarine looking thing, maybe like this big. You put your camera in it and then you can go in the ocean with it.
Oh, is that like the thing you see the guys in the cage when they're shooting the sharks?
Yep.
And they're going, oh wow.
Except not that giant. But
I'll put that in the corner of the screen so people can see that.
Yeah.
So you bought one of those young then?
yeah, so I got one of those when I was super young because I always liked getting, footage of surfing from the water angle. So then obviously that was an easy way to get cool fishing footage of like bringing in the marlin into the boat. And there'd be times where I'd be like, they'd be pulling up a marlin into their boat and I'd jump overboard to shoot like them pulling the fish up, and then like a giant shark would come maul the fish right behind the boat, and I'm in the water just filming
Next to the shark?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm out.
Filming
I'm
these
out at that
sharks
point.
just mauling these giant marlin and sailfish and stuff. It was insane.
Now, are you talking like bull sharks or what kind of sharks down there?
No, I think down there it's mainly tiger sharks. A lot of different reef sharks are down there. Mako sharks.
They'll get you.
They'll get you. Nothing like there's no great whites or anything. Like there's a lot of hammerheads down in Florida where I'm at. Like a lot of hammerheads and bull sharks.
Luis said he used to swim next to him in the canal in Miami when he was training as a heavyweight boxer. He's
really?
like his wife would his wife would be next to him in the boat, and whenever she hit the engines, he'd be like, "Oh fuck, there's a couple of sharks," and he'd have to jump back on the boat. But
Yeah.
there's Florida's where you always hear about a significant number of shark attacks, but it's interesting because there's not the great whites usually. If you ever hear about them, it's always in the summer, and it's like up in Massachusetts. It's like not
In
down
California.
there. Yeah, exactly.
Mexico, yeah.
Way out there.
No, yeah, I think the shark attack capital of the world is in New Smyrna Beach, Florida, which is a place that I go all the time.
Where is it?
New Smyrna Beach. It's right by Daytona Beach
Oh, on the East Coast.
on the east coast of Florida. Yeah, but there's a bunch of like little spinner sharks and black tip sharks and stuff like that. People get bit almost every week there.
That's not reassuring.
Every weekend there, but they're not like life threatening bites. You get like a couple stitches or
Yeah, see, I'm
Something like
I'm
that.
out on that. I went.
it's worth it, Julian.
I haven't gone in the ocean in Florida since I was 12 years old because the last 2 times I went in, I jumped over a bull shark, and I was like, nope, that's
bull
it.
shark? No, fuck
Yeah.
that. You
Yeah,
don't
we're
want to fuck
enough.
with a bull shark.
We're done with that.
How did you jump over a bull shark?
Well, it was a total. Trust me, I wouldn't have jumped. But it was
Where
a
were
total
you?
accident.
Like jumping off a dock?
I was on the East Coast, and I was just swimming in the ocean. The first time,
At the beach. At the beach?
the second time I jumped over it. The first time it was like from me to that camera from me. And I was, luckily I wasn't far out. I was like 11 years old or something like that. And so it was like a little gully in a calm day and got right in. It wasn't, I think it was like going after a fish. So it didn't even know I was there yet. But then the second time I heard my mom was back on the beach, maybe like a year or 2 later. I'm like, all right, I'll go in the ocean. It was kind of rough too. So I'm like, oh, they won't be out here. And I went out, I don't know how far, but it was somewhat far. And I was like waiting on a wave, and I just heard my mom yell, and I turned around, and she was going like this. I was like, okay. And then I don't know why, but I like turned back around to the wave, I guess to check if the wave was like going to crash on me. And then when I came back around, I was a swimmer. So I would always be looking for like a bunny hop, like you'd go off a wall on a flip, something like that. And so I like bunny hopped, and as I did, I went up like into like a dive because I was like up to here, and the fucking fin goes right beneath my stomach.
Oh, shit.
And I didn't touch it. I would have felt that, but I didn't touch it. And I got over that. I got in and said, I'm never going in here again. Just never, ever again in Florida. We're not doing it. It's over.
Yeah, they won't fuck with you, really. There's a crazy video in Miami of this woman like wading out into the like towards the sandbar. She must be like 100 yards from shore, but it's still really shallow because it's low tide, and I think she's walking up towards the sandbar, and it shows like a hammerhead shark swimming right towards her, and the person on the like 20th floor of this condo is filming it, and all of a sudden the shark just starts torpedoing towards her, and they're thinking like, oh my god, we're gonna watch this lady die. And all of a sudden, like when it's a foot or 2 feet from her, it just turns around as a U-turn.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, the chances, technically, despite what I'm saying about it with my attitude, the chances are always more on the side of they're not going to do anything.
Yeah.
That is true.
Right.
But it's like, they're out there every day. Like, if you're
They are,
surfing,
yeah.
it's like, holy shit. Like, you go out there 50 straight days, and like 1 out of the 50, it says like, oh, I think I'll take a bite.
Yeah.
There goes your leg.
And it's the certain type of sharks, too, that usually will bite, like the bull sharks or the tiger sharks, the ones that'll eat anything.
That was
Most
always the
sharks.
one I heard, the bull shark.
Yeah, bull sharks. Bull sharks are crazy because they have the most testosterone out of any shark. That's why they're considered probably the deadliest shark. I had Manny Puig. You know who Manny Puig is?
Is that the cartel guy?
No. He I don't know if you've ever seen like Jackass or Wild Boys.
Yeah, I have.
So Manny Puig's the guy. He's the shark guy. He's the guy who levitates alligators out of lakes and swims. Swims with every single fucking shark.
Yeah.
Looks like Tarzan. He's got hair
I
down
can't
to here.
picture his face, but I can picture some of the skits.
He's got kind of a weird, soft-spoken Cuban accent. Anyways, he's crazy as fuck. He's missing one finger from a rattlesnake that bit him.
Oh, that's nice.
But I had him on my podcast when we were talking about sharks. He swam with every single shark on the planet, and he's been bit by sharks probably like 14 times, and he's been bitten by 8 different species of sharks.
Oh, he keeps track.
Yeah,
nice.
And he said the one shark. Guess what shark you think is the worst to get bit by? What were you guess? Great white, tiger shark, nurse shark.
I mean, if I had known he was bitten by a great white, of course I'd say that just because it's like the biggest. But if great white aside, I would have said bull shark.
He said the worst bite is from the worst. Obviously, he hasn't been bit by a great white.
Yeah.
But he said the worst bite that he got was from a nurse shark.
I don't even know what that is. A nurse shark?
A nurse shark, yeah. Nurse
like
sharks.
A nurse, like a woman.
Yeah, it's called nurse. Yeah, Nurse shark. It's one of the most docile sharks that. It's like one of the most harmless sharks. People.
Yeah, I'm looking at.
People are least afraid of nurse sharks.
I'll put it in the corner of the screen for.
They kind of like hang out by the seafloor. They don't really come up. They don't swim. They're not pelagic.
This thing.
Yeah.
It does it looks like a catfish.
Yeah.
Does it have like sharp teeth, I guess?
Very, very docile shark. People swim with them all the time in the Bahamas. Like you can go to places in the Bahamas and swim with like dozens of them.
Yeah, look at this fucking guy. He's got one biting. It's a baby, but he's got a bite in his arm.
So he said the nurse shark was the worst bite ever. He said they have more jaw pressure. They have like 5 times more jaw pressure than a great white.
How big do these fucking things get?
They get probably 10, 12 feet.
Well, that's sizable, but damn.
But the thing is, they have so much jaw pressure. What they do is they'll bite onto you and they'll just drag you into the deep water, and there's nothing you can do about it.
No, you're done. It's like, that's like.
I mean, they don't have giant like 6-inch razors in their mouth like a great white, which will just shred you. But they have that jaw pressure and they can just drown you.
So how did he get away?
Well, every time he got bit, they just let go. They were just kind of like seeing what he was all about, like trying to get a taste. He wasn't trying to get. I mean, he does. So what he said is when he goes out and he films with sharks, he tries to get the sharks to eat him.
Oh, that's smart.
That's actually what he says.
Wow. Sounds like a great idea.
They chum up the water and get the sharks, super aggressive, like they want to eat them. And then that's how they get the best footage for the shows that he films with, which is fucking crazy. He's a wild motherfucker. I
got to see that one. And listen, I wish that guy well, but like at a funeral of someone like that, like what do you say? Like he went out doing what he loved? like what's the whole thing? Because it seems like whenever I see guys like that or guys like climbing buildings without a harness on, they're way up in the sky and shit like that. I'm like, I mean,
yeah.
If you're gone, it's like, I guess that's what you planned, right?
Yeah, I guess no one's surprised, right?
No. It's final though.
But that would be the best way to go if you were one of those guys, right? You'd want to die doing what you love.
Now that's an interesting take.
Or maybe not. I think a guy like him swimming with all those deadly sharks, he'll probably end up just going in his sleep.
It's funny how that works.
It is funny how that works.
It's almost like attracting the opposite vibe, like begging someone to kill you, but nah, you just.
Mm-hmm. It's like the opposite of Kobe Bryant, right? Like Kobe Bryant, that's something you would never fucking expect.
That's a great point.
Like your idol, someone that you worship, you never picture them dying.
Going down in a helicopter, like it makes no sense. You would totally expect Steve Irwin to get stung by a stingray or something crazy, whatever it was. Yeah. Even though that was kind of nuts, like when it happened, it's like, well, he does do some wild shit, but he was like, that's the thing, he was a lot more controlled than like this guy. Steve wasn't in there like trying to get a shark to bite him.
No, yeah, Steve was a lot more tame than Manny. But Steve, I mean, what are the chances that a stingray barb pierces your heart?
Yeah, I think that's what it was. Literally like a spear, kind of.
Yeah,
right.
I think it was a big ass stingray, and the barb is like probably 8 inches long. The thing went right into his fucking heart.
And you guys have those in Florida too, right?
Oh, everywhere in Florida. Yeah, I just showed you a picture a second ago before we started.
That was in Florida.
Yeah, my buddy Tifu.
Tifu.
Yeah, he catches stingrays and sharks and shit in his boat. That's the great thing about where we live, man. There's so much shit to do, like fishing, surfing, spearfishing, diving.
Well, you know what? What I like about this is you scratched your itch getting into filmmaking at the beginning because, like, you love surfing and stuff. You're like, oh, I can film this too, make it look cool. But then later on, and we'll come back to, like, some of your career and stuff because I think that's really interesting how this ended up. But, like, you ended up doing documentaries and you're like, when you started to do your own and not just like stuff that you were coming into a company and making them, it was like, well, let me just look in the backyard. I'll make one like Deckhands.
Yeah, looking under rocks.
That's it. And it's like you have a story like that. Which, by the way, for people listening, if you haven't checked out Danny's channel, Koncrete with a K, before the podcast, there was all kinds of feature films that you did. I guess like 2016, 2017, 2018ish, something like that.
Yeah,
and they're phenomenal. And you just did this in your backyard in the case of like the Deckhands example with just some guys who were these commercial fishermen who seemed like they were crazy dudes with interesting stories and who went to the 7-Eleven and panhandled for alcohol and caught fish at some point during the day. And you're like, oh, let's roll camera. And then you get this amazing 6-part series that has, I mean, it has so many layers to it from like a human study perspective. And it was right there. It was right where you grew up.
It's fun. Wild how it happens. Wild how it turns out, man. But yeah, before that, way before that, I was working on like feature movies and stuff like that, like being a camera PA or a camera assistant or even a camera operator on like actual like feature movies for Warner Brothers.
Well, what'd you do? Because you said you didn't get into film school.
I didn't get into film school.
And then you were in construction, but you stayed filming stuff. So how did you... Like, did you get a break where, you know, you went to MTV or something like that?
Well, yeah. So I started filming those fishing tournaments for ESPN. Then I eventually started getting calls from like different, like VH1 was one of them. MTV and VH1 were two of them. Just to do on like that was in like the reality show era when the reality shows were first taking off, the competition shows and all that. And I would get calls from those guys to come like be a camera operator on one show or one episode. And that morphed into me actually developing concepts for TV shows, like developing pilots for shows. And
were you writing?
No, I wasn't writing. It was basically I had multiple friends who were involved in various businesses and ventures around the world. And one of my friends he had a pawn shop company. He owned a chain of pawn shops in the Caribbean. There was like 20-something pawn shops from all the way from the Bahamas through Cuba, Jamaica, Barbados, Antigua, Cayman Islands.
Just some dude from Florida.
Some kid, yeah, my age. And he was basically just taking this little puddle jumper from island to island, managing all these pawn shops. And
a puddle jumper?
Yeah, like a small, like a little seaplane.
Oh shit!
Yeah, like it land in the water.
Wait, how did you just wake up one day like I'm gonna own pawn shops in the Caribbean? That's really random.
It started with one pawn shop, and then an investor came in and said like, "Do you want to expand this?" And they expanded it and they bought tons of them, and their base was in the Cayman Islands in Grand Cayman, and then they bought a plane so they could make it easier to travel and manage everything. Ooh, these cloud lifters are crispy, man. I can't get over it.
It's pretty good, right?
It sounds so good. I need to get one of these. Anyways, so me and him were sitting there talking one day, and I'm like, dude, this would be a fucking amazing show. So he convinced the guy who invested in the company to pay us to develop a pilot to shop the show around. So we spent a couple months doing that, like flying around with, I hired a crew, and we spent probably 2 or 3 months on various islands filming.
How many people did you have?
We had a crew of probably probably 8 people.
This is a lot of money.
Yeah, a lot of money.
Who funded it again?
The people who invested in the pawn shop company funded the pilot.
But when they funded it, were they saying like you're allowed to go get a full crew and everything for it? Or
they gave me a full budget.
So they weren't just like go give us like what do they call it? When it's like when you do like a fake trailer. You know what I mean?
A pilot?
No. There's
a sizzle?
Sizzle. That's it. It wasn't like you just going to get a sizzle. They're like,
we
actually developed
shot
this like you would.
We did a sizzle, but we also filmed 3 episodes. So we had 3 episodes in the can.
Wow.
Yeah. So we shot enough for 3 episodes initially. We got that we developed the sizzle, and we shot the sizzle all around to every single big production house there is. The biggest one we shopped it to, which we had a couple meetings with, was the production company that sold Duck Dynasty. This was in like the heyday of Duck Dynasty, when Duck Dynasty was like the biggest show on TV, making all this money, and it's all everyone was talking about. We had dozens of meetings, flew all around, met with every production company, every TV network, and it never went anywhere. And after all that time, it was such a letdown. To
How many months you talking here?
Probably from concept to shooting and shopping it around. This whole process probably lasted 2 years.
Oh shit! Wow.
Yeah. Long time.
Yeah.
Super long time. That's how long it takes. It takes longer than that sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. Those TV networks they only operate based on what's good for their advertising. So you could spend, all this money, all this time. I mean, I wasn't the guy who dumped all my money into it. I just dumped all my time into it. I got paid for my time, but it's hard. The TV industry is extremely difficult. The whole gatekeeper mentality with the networks and the production companies. These production companies now, the way they work is they're just scouring the internet and scouring podcasts for content and locking people up in shopping agreements so they can sit on the shelf for 6 months to a year, because they have these relationships with these networks, and they can go to these meetings every single month, and the networks are saying, "Hey, we got Coca-Cola and Goodyear. We want to get some shows that line up with these new advertisers we got. So what do you got in this niche or this category?" And then the production company go back, "Oh, we got 24 shows on the shelf that we think will work for this, that we locked these people up in these agreements for 6 years ago or whatever." And it works that way. So it's like reverse engineered from advertising to content. It's not like what's good, what's interesting, what's amazing content, let's go find advertisers for. It's the opposite.
Right.
Which I learned the hard way with a lot of letdowns. And I basically duplicated that process with that pawn shop show probably 3 or 4 times before I just decided I'm going to take all this fucking shit and put it on YouTube myself.
Oh, so wait, was that the genesis of something like Deckhands? You were like,
yes.
Oh, let me start shooting this and then sell
Yep.
the concept?
Yeah. And then I did another show with a guy, a big
Wow.
guy in my town, big real estate investor. Same thing. Same exact process.
Is that Mallers guy?
Yeah. Yeah, Mallers.
So what were you doing there?
So he was a real estate investor, and he was just this fucking hilarious character, and started filming commercials and advertising for his businesses. And dude was a fucking character. Like, he was like Larry David in a 500-pound body. He was like Larry David and Tony Soprano had a baby. That's who he was.
Is he still alive?
Yeah, he's still alive.
Okay.
Barely, but he's still alive. Worked on that show for a couple years, at least 2 or 3 years before we started shopping it around. That one we thought for sure that thing's gonna get picked up. We had a couple big production companies and we actually got greenlit by Spike TV for that show.
Wow.
Like, we went to the greenlight meeting. And
That sounds right up their alley.
Yeah, and the CEO in the meeting, the CEO of Viacom was there, and he killed it because they were trying to go very like religious, Christian, family friendly.
At Spike TV?
At Spike, yeah. They had a whole rebrand right when we were doing this.
No wonder I haven't heard of any. I mean, I don't watch TV anymore, so it's hard. It's hard for me to say this about any one person, but maybe that's a part of it. I haven't heard that name like even on social media anywhere in a long time.
Yeah, Spike was going through a rebrand right when we were pitching it, or right when they took it to Greenlight meeting.
God, that's
Anyways, so I took all that.
thing.
I took all that, and I re-edited 3 years of content, repackaged it all for YouTube into episodes.
He did a phenomenal
and it fucking
job.
went off.
Yeah,
and that's the moment I realized that I'm going to start just doing everything and publishing it independently.
I mean, I prefer seeing it that way because you don't get any of those people in suits who don't have a creative bone in their body in between you to tell you how to optimize every single thing for, in this case, as you pointed out, advertisers, for example. But there's other things too. There's all kinds of bullshit, and you get to put out your vision and you get to sink or swim on it, period. Right? So, it worked out for you because it built your channel a big base too. And then you gave yourself the flexibility. Like I love how you built your channel where you had that, and then you're like, you know what, I think I'll do a podcast, and you could kind of like ease into it and be like, yeah, this is what we're gonna do. And of course, there's some people who are like, okay, well now I don't like this channel anymore. I don't want a podcast. I'm not into that.
Right.
But then there's a lot of people who are like, oh, sick, this dude's doing a podcast now.
Yeah.
Great. And now they already know you're a storyteller. So then they see someone come on, and they're like, wow, that guy sounds interesting. Boom, they're in.
Yeah, no, the podcast. I mean, it's a weird thing too because you get sick of doing shit as well. Like it's like look at YouTube. Every YouTube channel that's successful is got one niche. They got one thing they stick to for a long period of time and it becomes successful.
Yes.
Me, I don't like doing the same thing for that long. Like any of these shows, I get sick of them after a while. Like I get sick of hanging out with fucking crackheads every weekend for 6 months straight. It gets old.
Yeah.
Making a series about one thing gets old every once in a while, or doing anything for that matter. I mean, I don't know if I'll fucking keep podcasting forever. Eventually I might get sick of it and want to go back to editing, crazy documentaries or short films or whatever it might be.
I hope you do, by the way. I don't want to see you stop the podcast, because the thing I'll say on that is that the nice thing about it, and it can be a curse, and I do understand this because you and I have similar interests and talk to a wide range of people, but like you don't necessarily have a niche there. The niche is podcast, but there's a million kinds of podcasts. That's not really a niche. It's like, okay, that's a type of content.
Yeah.
But then you're talking with Ben Mallers all the way to, Larry Mazza. And then you're talking to Sean Atwood, who's over in Europe and has a totally different story. Or you're talking to fucking Matt Cox. You go across the board. You're talking to all different types of people in different things. You've had guys on the metaverse and stuff like that. So it like that human thing we have of like chasing, in some way always needing some sort of new shiny object to chase. You have that built in my opinion, from the outside to your podcast, because you have to constantly be like, okay, well this one's way different. Let's talk to this guy.
Yeah.
The only thing that's the same is, you can walk into the studio, the cameras are there, the mics are there, you turn them on and you're going.
Mm-hmm. The thing about doing the short films and the documentaries and even movies for that matter is that kind of content has some sort of like it has like a soul to it. It has like a vibe to it. Like there's a vibe. It's like what? Like the way I edit any sort of old content, whether it be documentaries or short films or whatever the fuck it is, commercials, I try to make them like music videos. You'll have something that you can take away from it and learn from it, as well as enjoy the ride. It just carries you. Because of the way because it's good music, insane looking visuals, combined with some sort of educational content or something that you take away from it. This is not that way. This is just two people talking. This is the most cut and dry type of content you could possibly create.
Yes.
But the thing about it, which is different, is it makes you better at things. Like the most important thing, I think, to most people is probably communication. There's probably nothing you could be better at other than communication, because that can help you in pretty much every aspect of your life, whether it be sales, whatever the fuck it is, convincing people of anything. And that's what I've gained the most from doing this podcast is gaining the ability to communicate with people, different types of people, and articulate shit. Which I've learned when I first started doing this that I didn't know I couldn't do to save my own life. Which is why I think you're perfect for podcasting, because you're really good at that shit. You're a fucking great. You're great at communicating. You're a great talker. You're great at talking to all kinds of people, and that's why I like listening to your podcast, Julian.
I appreciate that, man. But seriously, like right back at you. It's when I see some of your earliest stuff, like once I started going and looking, the improvement in how you are so quick to understand where someone's going before they get there is so noticeable. And there's a lot, like, I do this, so of course I'm listening for certain things because I'm always trying to see, like, well, this guy's great. What makes him great? But like, even people that just are in the audience listening for entertainment, they're not thinking about that shit. They inherently notice that. They see, I was talking with you about this earlier, but like, they can see when you have no hesitation towards very calmly but blatantly out of nowhere challenging someone on something. That's hard to do. That's really like, and I was talking about the Bustamante episode you did with him, the most recent one, and that guy's a pro. I mean, he's obviously great at doing this and communicating, and nothing really shakes him. But you really, there were a couple times in there where it was like, you had no problem going, wait, no, how does that make any sense? And, you know, you're talking to a guy who was undercover in a serious place for years and years and years and years. He worked at the CIA. He's a galaxy brain and all this. But to be able to do that and then keep the flow going and keep great rapport, because it was very comfortable while it was going on too, that is very, very difficult. So you should give yourself a lot of credit for that, because I would guess at the beginning of your podcast, that wasn't something that was as natural to you. You went from behind the camera to now also being on the camera.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it was super difficult. It definitely didn't come naturally. It came from basically watching all my worst moments talking to people. Because now I can't edit out the dumb shit, you know what I mean? I can't just put the best stuff in there and then cut away to some music or some B-roll whenever I want.
Right.
But yeah, no, it's hard. I mean, it just came from watching how bad I sucked and figuring out how to make them better. And I think when you challenge people or try to come up with a argument against something that somebody's talking about, I think it makes the talking aspect more engaging for a casual listener.
Absolutely. And it you know, making something uncomfortable is such a weird line, because it's great content.
It is great content.
But some people also are like, oh, I can't keep going. I can't listen to this. And it's a weird line, but also you don't want to.
You think it turns some people off?
Depends on which one it is. Like, I can think of ones that I've listened to of other podcasts where I'm like, oh, that was amazing. And other times where I'm like, I can't. Oh my God, this is so uncomfortable. I remember there was an old Rogan podcast. This was years ago, where some dude he started to say there was no such thing as a man or a woman. I mean, it was an hour of that, and Joe was just like, what? Like, that makes no sense.
Yeah.
And I'm just, it probably went longer than that, but I'm like, I can't. This is like, I have secondhand embarrassment for everyone in this situation.
So you felt bad for the guest.
I think I felt bad for everybody.
Yeah.
The guest was all, I mean, I thought it was a pretty cold take from the guest. I feel pretty comfortable about the definition there. So I was like, okay. But there's other times where if you're like, if you want to argue with Andy over privacy, like, obviously guys like you and me, we're coming out on the opposite end of that.
Right.
But it's a healthy conversation. It's uncomfortable, but it's uncomfortable if you're listening to it a little bit. It's not, you make it so that like you have no problem challenging to come at that. And then when you're in here, which is important to be able to get the communication across, it's good for the two of you. So then that ends up coming across, I think, to the listener. You do a really, really good job of that. Yeah,
I try to do as much as I possibly can. You know, I still don't agree with his point that he made about that, about the whole analogy about do you have kids? Do you tell your kids everything? It's different when there's laws and the whole creation of a state thing too. I've talked about that. I talked about that in that last podcast I did with Kiriakou, and he came up with a pretty good argument against it.
Oh, tell me about this guy, by the way.
John Kiriakou.
I haven't seen this one yet.
Yeah.
What's the story there?
Yeah, he's a fucking fascinating dude who's been banned on pretty much every social media platform except for Twitter.
And what's his background? If you are looking to add some hours, days, months, years to your life because maybe you're not sleeping too well every night and maybe you're waking up without enough energy to properly attack the day, you should check out my friends over at 8 Sleep. The 8 Sleep Pod Pro cover is one of the best things I've ever used in my life. It comes in queen or king sizes. In my case, a queen. Goes right on top of your current mattress. Is wired directly into 8 Sleep's proprietary app where it measures your sleep stages and all kinds of sleep science stuff throughout the night to optimize your sleep around you. As I like to say, you'll wake up in the morning after sleeping 6 hours and feel like you slept 8. So if you use the link in my description along with the code TRENDIFIER at checkout, that's TRENDIFIER, you will get $150 off your own 8 Sleep Pod Pro cover today. Once again, that is code TRENDIFIER, TRENDIFIER. Make sure you use that and you get $150 off your own 8 Sleep Pod Pro cover. I almost fucked that up. Pod Pro cover today. So check it out.
And he was in the CIA for 15 years, and he worked the CIA. They called him the human rights guy because when they first came out with the enhanced interrogation program, he was like asking them questions. Like they said, "You want to do this?" And he like was asking a bunch of questions about it. And he went up and talked to like the guy who was in in charge of him, was his boss, and he asked him questions like, "Why would you ask these questions?" He's like, "We're in the CIA," and because of that, because of him always asking questions, I feel like he was kind of, no disrespect to him, but I feel like he was kind of the Karen of the CIA, and that's what they call it. They called him the human rights guy, and,
but they put him through the ringer.
They put him through the fucking ringer, yeah, and you know, anything that was, you know, morally unjust, he sort of like spoke up.
Right.
And sort of called people out on it, which is why I call him the Karen of the CIA, because I feel like if you're in the CIA, you should kind of expect that. But
how far does it go, though?
How far does it go? That's the question. But he had a life. Abu Zubaydah, he caught Abu Zubaydah. And
wait, he was on the actual...
He was
like
there.
Guns drawn doing it?
Oh, yeah. He was like a couple blocks away, supervising the whole thing over radio.
Okay.
When those guys were doing it, and then as soon as they shot those guys, they caught Abu Zubaydah and the guy and the security guard he was with at a safe house. He heard a bunch of shots fired when there were supposed to be no shots fired. So they hauled ass to the location, and Abu Zubaydah and a security guard were laying on the ground bleeding out. Abu Zubaydah was shot in the leg, the gut, and like the torso or something.
Was this in Pakistan or Jordan? I don't remember.
This was in, I think, Pakistan. Okay. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Pakistan.
It was like, I'm trying to remember it. I think maybe like number 3 at Al-Qaeda.
That's what they said.
Yeah. That's
what the CIA said, that he was like number 3, but apparently he was a little bit farther down the totem pole than that.
Got it. I'll put his picture in the corner. Pretty wild.
And he was
one
like
of our wild terrorist pictures of all time.
Yeah,
that's him.
Bro, that guy has been through fucking hell. One of the story with his eye, they fucking, once he was in Guantanamo,
his eye wasn't like that.
No, they fucking removed his eyeball.
Or Guantanamo.
They did, what the fuck did they do to his eye? They did something where they surgically fucking removed his eye. And then
the CIA,
yeah, well, when it was part of the interrogation process. Part of his torture was removing his fucking eyeball.
Enhanced interrogation.
Yeah, enhanced interrogation. We do not interrogate.
We do not torture.
Yeah, dude, that guy's been through fucking hell. It's amazing that he's still alive. But yeah, Kiriakou, he was over there. He caught Abu Zubaydah, and you know, he told the whole story about that, and then how, you know, after he was basically rushed into surgery because they needed to keep him alive. Like his mission was get Abu Zubaydah alive, and Abu Zubaydah was on the street bleeding out. They fucking took him to the closest hospital. He talks about being in the hospital while Abu Zubaydah is getting surgery done. He's waiting in the waiting room while people are showering the hospital with AK-47s. He's ducking, and eventually they get him out and they extract him, and then that was the last time he saw Abu Zubaydah, and he got sent to Guantanamo eventually.
Yeah, he hasn't. That was shortly. I'm just reading. It was March 2002 in Pakistan. This was like
right
it's
after 9/11.
It's hard. It's hard to think about this, but at the time, the only thing the government like knew was Osama bin Laden, 9/11. There wasn't like a whole. They didn't have all the picture of like KSM and exactly how it all went down and what the planning was. Say nothing of Saudi Arabia and all that shit too. But you know, that's all extra stuff that we'd love to find out about. But like, this was like a crazy. If you're at the CIA at the time or something like that, it's a crazy time because you're trying to figure out exactly all the pieces, and you have a very on edge, pissed off society looking for answers. You know, so to get a guy like this, even if he wasn't quite as high up as they thought, I got to check that out. I wasn't as aware of that. I haven't looked at this in a long time, but like, you know, this was like the first, like, oh, we got one. You know what I mean? Like they had done an okay job in Afghanistan, but they hadn't gotten these guys.
Yeah, no, I don't really know much about that sort of time in history, or any history for that matter of fact, other than the documentaries that I watch. They sort of just go in one. I watch them, I remember them for a day, then I forget about them. That's hard. Like you have like a picture book of history in your head from like every president, every war. I don't know how you do that.
Not real. Listen, like same deal I told you after we did our podcast with you. It's like the stuff that I look at. If I go on a podcast and someone starts digging for that, all right, yeah, I'm going to talk about the stuff I've like read before. But, you know, most of the time when I have someone sitting there, I may know like for something like this where I've actually read stuff on Abu Zubaydah. Like I remember I read I think it was George Tenet's memoir or something. It was like 7 years ago.
Was he a CIA director?
Yeah, he was the head of the CIA during this time. So like I saw these stories and whatever, and I saw it in a documentary like at the same time. So like I may know like a broad thing, but you know, once you actually like say, oh, here's a crazy topic that happened, let me go look at that. I remember this. You start reading about it, you're like, oh shit, I didn't know any of this.
Yeah.
It's like the layers to every conflict, international crisis, disagreement between groups. It's insane. I mean, I'm working on a book right now about ISIS, and I'm like,
you're reading it?
yeah. I'm like, what the fuck? I didn't know any of this. I just knew ISIS were the crazy guys like killing people with wild videos on social media. You know, and they took over, they wanted a caliphate, and I knew the basics. Everyone knew the basics. But then I started reading about it, and I'm like, holy shit, this took like...
What book is it?
It's called, I believe it's called Black Flags.
Okay.
It's great. It's great. And there's an audiobook too. I know you're an audiobook guy.
Yeah, I don't like reading.
But, but like this guy had, you know, he won the Pulitzer Prize for it, the guy who wrote it. And it's like, this shit was developing for a long, long time. And we forget, you know, I live in America. I can't even name some of the countries over there. And you start reading this, you're like, oh shit, there's more than Iraq, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. Wait a second. And Israel, I guess, because they're always in the middle of stuff. It's like, oh, these guys are building all these other places too. And then you're questioning, well, what's true? What's kind of like
right.
Some sources cooking the books. Which
right.
You always got to question. I mean, do you find yourself doing that a lot with guys you bring in, especially like, even like a Bustamante, someone from the government?
Yeah, usually after the podcast is over, I'll kind of like think about it, and I'll be like, man, that guy, that seemed kind of fishy. Like that kind of felt like a reach, you know?
Was there something from John that felt like that? Like a few things?
John,
is that his name, John?
Yeah, John Kiriakou. No, not really. He seemed, I mean, the crazy thing to me is he blew my mind at the end of the podcast where he talked about how he's doing a daily show on Sputnik. He signed a contract with Sputnik and he does a daily radio show with them.
Is that a Russian?
Yeah, I think it's the government, the Russian regime's radio show, right?
Why did he sign a deal with them?
Beats me. I think they're the only ones who would hire him to talk. I don't know. Obviously, he's kind of like a dissident, right? Because the CIA,
they fucked him.
They fucked him because he came out on ABC News talking about the interrogation program. And
when was that?
I
a while ago, right?
I want to say it was 2016, right around there.
When he came out about it, I think it was earlier.
It might have been earlier. Maybe he got out of prison in 2016.
Yeah,
no, he got out of prison in 2015, I think.
That's what it was.
But he went to prison for 2 years under espionage. Because he basically just, I mean, I told you the story about how he got called by the guy from ABC. And then...
Yeah, 2007 was the ABC thing. I'm just
okay.
I got it behind us.
Okay.
But he was, yeah, you're right. He was in jail and he got out 2015.
2015, okay.
So they didn't... He said it in 2007, and then it says, on October 22nd, 2012, Kiriakou pleaded guilty to this. So they didn't charge him for a while.
Right. They went through, he fought it for a long, long time, and he only pled to one charge. Like, they originally had him doing, like, 50 years. And then he ended up pleading, I guess he has a really, really good team of lawyers that he had. Like, some of the best fucking lawyers in the country. And he ended up only pleading to. He told me he had like a final meeting when they gave him his final options of what he wanted to do. And he said he stayed up all night with his wife talking about what he wanted to do. And he was like, "No, I'm going to fight it. I'm not gonna take the plea." And then his lawyers emailed him back instantly, and they're like, "We're coming to your house right now. We need to meet at this instant, like right now." So they came to his house an hour later, team of like 5 lawyers. And he said, after he told him why he made the decision, why he doesn't want to take the plea, he wants to take it to trial. One of the lawyers is like, he's like, "You are a fucking idiot." He goes, you got this all backwards. You think this is about justice. It's not about justice. It's about mitigation of risk.
He was right. That lawyer was right.
Yeah.
It's sad.
Yeah.
But he was right. There's no, I mean, call me a cynic, you know. When the government's taking care of themselves, the order of business,
yeah,
nothing's off limits, man.
But it's crazy. Now he's got the show on Sputnik. He said they don't censor anything he says. He says he talks about whatever the fuck he wants. He said he's never been censored on there.
Is he on any American platforms?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. You'd have to look it up. He claims he's not. He said he was. He says he's been censored on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, Instagram. I think he is on Twitter though. But basically every broadcasting platform that is in America, he's been censored on. He's been banned from.
For what? Did he say, like, why? He thinks?
He did, but I don't remember off the top of my head. And he's also got these guys that work with him who he says they're on Twitter and they get, you know how automated bots on Twitter get labeled? Like their tweets get labeled like automated bot. Have you ever seen that? Have you ever seen on Elon Jet? If you go to Elon Jet's Twitter, all the automated tweets, they have a little label on them.
Yes.
It says this is like automated bot tag. So
I was just on that yesterday because you had the guy on.
A bunch of the people that he works with, that work with him on that radio show, have been labeled on Twitter as Russian state media. And he says, I don't know if it's true or not, but he said like they even put a Russian flag in their profile, like
Twitter does.
Next to their name. Twitter does, and labels them Russian sponsored media. But then Russia doesn't censor anything, and the U.S. is censoring everything. So that's that thing that threw me for a whole fucking loop because everyone tells me Russia's the one that censors everything.
That surprised you?
That surprised me, yeah. It didn't surprise you?
No, because you were talking about something else earlier, and I said this, but the thing I try to keep myself aware of, it's hard sometimes when you're just ripping somebody who's bad, but like evil people can do really smart shit. Not all of them. There's plenty of stupid ones, but like evil people can do really smart shit. And like with Putin, one thing that he has been very, very effective at least up to this point, is he fucks all his own people into submission, but he will tolerate, to much more of an extent than other dictators would, foreign people who say some of the same things. So like Anna Politskaya, I never pronounce her name right, but Anna Politskaya, who was a key journalist in Russia, from Russia, who reported against Putin all the time, was a check to the balance of his regime. She was murdered, shot a bunch of times in the doorway of her home. They made it very obvious. The Russian government killed her. He didn't give a fuck. David Satter, who you and I have had on our podcasts, he walks around, he's fine. Because David Satter's from America. David Satter arguably was saying worse shit about Putin than Anna. But what Putin does is he then uses that. He uses guys like Edward Snowden and says like, oh, look at this. Yeah, he's allowed to say whatever he wants. Because with a guy like Snowden, and by the way, a guy like John too, because John had a righteous disagreement, by the way, with the U.S. government, Putin says, what's the trade-off? He goes, okay, I gotta let this guy say shit that's not positive towards me, but I get to say, look, I'm even letting a Westerner do it. And look at this. Like, his own country censors him. They don't even like him. Look at how free we are here. And then people in his home country go, I guess it's not as bad as we thought.
Yeah.
So he changes the narrative. Now, Xi doesn't do that. Xi Jinping is incapable, it appears to me, unless someone has evidence to show me. It appears he's incapable of that. Like, if an NBA player says something wrong, they're out, right? Like, we cut their games. But Putin, he seems to understand political chip trade-offs. I don't know. But I'd have to look into this and see what it is. I just think it's...
Putin seems like a fun guy. I mean, he does.
Did you watch the propaganda videos?
Did you watch the Oliver Stone interviews with him?
Yes, I've seen some of it, but I haven't seen the whole thing.
Seems like a smart dude.
On Showtime.
Seems sharp. Seems intelligent. Seems like he's fit. So he works out every single day.
He works out every day.
Karate expert.
I'll give him that, but he's not like... he shows people what he wants them to see. It's like any other... I mean, you look at
just like anybody does.
Sure.
That's what everybody does.
Look at Kim Jong-il's or whatever the fuck is Kim Jong-un's videos. He's riding on a fucking white horse and like looking at 1995 computers all excited and going, ooh, bomb, yeah, exciting. It's got like nice music. Of course, he looks like a great guy. Kills all his people. It's just like they show you what they want. It's no different in any government. I don't look past that here. But it's like, you know, we have such a weird thing. This is just my opinion. We have such a weird thing going on where it's like conflict growth. they need to make it, right? So you know, it's not good enough for the media to be like, wow, this is fucked up. Like, look what Putin's doing in Ukraine. They need to suddenly be like, we in America are all Ukrainians. And like, there's nothing wrong. There's not a single thing wrong in Ukraine. Not one thing. It's the perfect country. Everything's beautiful there.
Yeah.
And Putin's Hitler. And what you do is you then turn people off who are like, well, that's kind of crazy. That's pie in the sky, because it is. And then it's like, form the factions and everyone fights. And now they're suddenly like, oh shit, we overcooked that one. We got to get the attention somewhere else. Oh, someone leaked the Roe v. Wade thing. You know, this is what they do. It's like, what do they call it on Twitter? The current thing.
Yeah.
You know? It's just like, in some ways we're all at fault though for it, because we just, too many of us just let it happen and get caught up in the moment for 280 characters to make ourselves feel good.
Yeah. I told you about the documentary I've been watching, the latest one called Can't Get You Out of My Head, which is wild. And it's a great history lesson for someone like me who's an idiot, doesn't know anything about history.
Oh, is this the Mal one? Hey guys, thanks for watching part 1 of the podcast. Check out part 2 in the link down in the pinned comment or in the description below.